Hi guys, it's Down Under Paleocon, and I just want to say that I understand this is an extremely late upload, and for that I apologise. But alas, today I want to talk about protectionism. Today I'll be talking about what it is, how it works, and also explaining why I believe it's a good thing, as well as debunking many reasons as to why other people believe it isn't. So without further ado, let's begin. I'll start off by explaining what it is. Protectionism, as its name suggests, is protecting a nation's domestic industry from international trade by restricting said international trade. The reasons country may use protectionist policies is because their domestic industry simply cannot compete against international trade alone, especially transnational corporations. Examples of protectionist policies in order to achieve this include, but are certainly not limited to, higher tariffs and stricter import quotas, stricter administrative barriers, subsidizing domestic industry, political campaigns on domestic consumption, and governmental benefits if domestic consumption is prioritized. Now that we know what protectionism is, this is why it is good, and in some cases we absolutely need it. And in this part I'll be using my own country of Australia as an example, because of two reasons. A, it's the one I'm personally most concerned about for obvious reasons, and B, it is a great example for this. Without protectionism, specific industries of a nation would greatly struggle, if not fail, in competing against the industries of other nations. This leads to a decline of that industry in that country, which then leads to a decreasing GDP, because that industry would have been contributing to said GDP, as well as a massive decline in employment in that said industry. And if a country is in extremely bad shape, then it can be several industries, if not all of them. In Australia's case, it's really only one industry, but a very important industry, manufacturing. And there are quite a few reasons for this, the most prominent being the rapid increase in labour costs over time. Because of this, manufacturing in Australia has been rapidly declining, and so has the employment in manufacturing. Now let's compare that to Australia's biggest trading partner, China, which unfortunately happens to have the highest rate of manufacturing in the world, by a long shot. This is why Australia needs protectionism in order to revive its manufacturing, and this may be why other countries need protectionism, in order to protect their industries that may also be failing. Now finally, let's respond to many of the critiques of protectionism. Most of the supposed disadvantages of protectionism are due to a lack of competition in a protectionist economy, even though the point of protectionism is quite the opposite. Protectionist policies fight against both monopolies and transnational corporations, as well as the entire industries of other nations, so that a specific industry can have competition. Now, Austrian economicists, who believe in a totally free market capitalist economy, and because of this oppose protectionism, argues that it's because of the government that monopolies exist, and without government subsidies, monopolies would be next to impossible to form or survive. I only agree with this to a certain extent. Monopolies are certainly much easier to form with government aid, but to say that it's impossible to form monopolies without government aid isn't true, because natural monopolies do exist. And to say that monopolies after formation cannot survive without government aid simply doesn't make sense to me, because younger and smaller businesses simply do not have the economic power to even compare with larger older monopolies and TNCs. So that's my response to the lack of competition argument, but there are a few more that I wish to quickly go over. Another supposed disadvantage of protectionism is higher prices. This basically believes that people will have to pay more because A, tariffs, and B, demand becomes higher than production. But this argument completely misses the point of protectionism. When tariffs were first implemented, their main purpose was simply to increase government revenue. But in a protectionist policy, that isn't the main purpose of tariffs. Their main point is to dissuade people from buying foreign goods, and to prioritize buying locally and producing locally, which is why the second point of this argument also misses the point of protectionism. And the last anti-protectionist argument that I'm going to talk about specifically talks about Australia. That being that in order for a protectionist economy to work, labour costs would have to be cut, and in order to do that, you would have to cut the incomes of manufacturing workers. And that would be true, because high wages of manufacturing workers are a huge factor of the extremely high labour cost. But I believe that this is a very minimal sacrifice because of two reasons. One, the incomes of manufacturing workers are extremely freaking high. I very much doubt that this would cause extreme economic problems for them. And two, a smaller income is a relatively small sacrifice if it means having a higher chance of keeping your job and having a source of income at all. So yes, this may be a sacrifice that must be made in order for this to work, but it's an extremely small one. And so that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys found this useful. If you disagree with this idea, I welcome respectful disagreement in the comment section, as well as any questions that you may have, and I will see you in the next video.